Okay. How are you? Kumusta? How are you? Oh my God, I haven't seen you for quite, it's not about a year now or 2 years almost.
Probably about that long.
Okay,
But
so
I've been good.
what are you taking at uni?
So I'm doing my Bachelor's of Science doing biomedical science at the University of Auckland. So I'm in my
Uh,
second year.
so this is going into medicine.
It's just to
Pre-med.
it's like it can be a pre-med, but it's also for research because that's
Uh,
something that I'm really interested in pursuing.
I see. All right. So what are you busy with right now, aside from studying, of course, like studying, but are you still involved in, all these sort of, leadership sort of activities, student leadership activities and things like that?
Well, after moving to Auckland, it was
Mm,
actually a good clean slate for me to be able to try out different things with the
mm,
university. As of
mm.
right now, I did leave a lot of my leadership positions or just groups from Wellington because it would be so hard to always just
Yeah,
go
yeah,
there.
yeah.
But in terms of the university, I've just been involved in clubs such as the Women in Science Club. I've
All
been
right.
involved as a class rep and
Mm.
just doing, I'm currently starting a research project this year. So it's quite full on with studies. So I'm trying to not do as much as I used to in high school.
Yeah. How is it like, studying in this COVID environment? Like it's probably hard. But anyway, like, yeah, share
Yeah.
your experience, currently studying in this COVID environment. How is it like?
For me, I actually I actually quite like it, but I know for a lot of people they do dislike it. It is really difficult, especially not being able to physically interact with your lecturers and professors.
Mm,
Um, in terms of the lectures, it's all recorded or through live
mm,
Zooms, which is okay. But I think the problem lies, especially with labs where it's practical,
mm.
it's really hard to understand procedures when you can't physically do it yourself.
Oh,
So
that would really be hard.
yeah, but I
Mm,
think with the whole new traffic light system, it's quite, and there are options for people to go into uni and go use the library, for example, or
mm,
some classes are in person. So
mm,
there is that balance of being able to go physically now.
mm. Okay, so I'm interested in your sort of leadership thinking. I know you said you've sort of not very involved now because you're very busy with your studies, but tell me about all the involvement that you've had back when you were in Wellington in high school and all that, and how do you see that playing up, I guess, in your future?
Oh,
It's
that's
a loaded question.
yeah. So to answer the first part of the question, I think I was involved in a lot of different leadership activities and groups. For
Mm,
the most part, in my final year of high school, I was the deputy head girl for level leaders, and that was
mm,
pretty much just looking after the hawara of the different year levels in our school and organizing different events.
mm,
Um, I was also involved in the Wellington Climate Challenge conference as a promotions officer. So a lot of it was just going into different high schools to have high school ambassadors, and I primarily worked with them to promote the event as well as
mm,
during the event, just making sure
mm,
the logistics were okay.
mm.
Um, and I think specifically that you probably wanted to hear more about was my work with with the Philippine ambassador, Amba
Mm, mm.
Gary.
Yeah.
So I think it started in 2019. I was heavily involved with United Nations Youth, which
Mm,
is just a group of young people going to these conferences where you can debate about global issues. And
mm,
my first interaction with the Philippine embassy was because they sponsored me to become a representative for the Philippines during the New Zealand Model United Nations Conference. So yeah, I debated on behalf of the Philippines and there were other people who were also representatives of the Philippines. And so after that initial contact, I guess it just continued on from there. Ambassador actually, he hosted the Filipino Kiwi Youth Forum. I'm not too sure if it was 2019 or 2020. It was hosted in Lower Hutt, and it was practically a political panel with all of the parties.
That was 2019.
2019.
That was 2019. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I saw you. I'm not too sure if I saw you.
I was there, but I only came towards the end, of the panel. So you invited the the representatives from from the party from National and Labour Party, and I think I remember that.
Yeah, so it was great to have like youth engage, and I was grateful that I was able to MC that forum. I think the most difficult part was it was just really bad timing when I had become a youth ambassador for the Philippine embassy, because in 2020, of course, COVID was difficult. We were planning an ASEAN New Zealand Youth Conference, which we were able to learn more about ASEAN, the different cultures of the Southeast Asian nations, and being able to meet different Filipinos all over Wellington. But we had to postpone so many times, and it didn't manage to pull through. But otherwise, my interactions with Ambassador was just a lot of conversations about global issues, as well as the differences between the cultures here and in the Philippines, and how people perceive schools in these two countries. It was really interesting to hear his perspectives, and I'm really appreciative of all he's done.
I thought you were going into law or politics, because when I've seen you doing all that, and I'm like, you're in the sciences. So what's the change in switch in, in your career path, I guess?
I think I've always been interested in science. I mean, I took it all the way from year 9, and even right now, I think there was just a lot more opportunities in terms of being able to voice your opinions in Wellington, being so close to Parliament, and I didn't want to obviously get rid of that opportunity. Obviously, all of the key issues that I've been advocating for, whether it's women empowerment or climate change, etc., it's still embedded in me to this day, and I still won't get rid of it. I think it's always going to be a part of me. So advocacy is still something that I will look forward to in my future career, even as a scientist or in my clinical career.
Well, you probably will be able to do a lot of research, I guess, around what would be good to do, like scientific studies around climate change and all those advocacy that you've started. So well done, you. That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So thinking about the idea of having a role model. Do you have a role model in your life?
It's so cheesy and corny, but I think my role models will definitely have to be my parents. I just think that it's so important to obviously look up to someone to gain motivation and inspiration, and the first people that can come into my mind are my parents. They both have a balance, and they inspire me in different ways. So for example, for my mom, she teaches me and inspires me to become independent, to live life spontaneously, because my mom is very spontaneous, but cautiously. So whereas my dad I think I get most of my diligence from him and work ethics because of him. But he also told me to, enjoy what you're doing, because it's not worth it if you're not enjoying what you're doing.
And because I know your parents both are in the IT space area, so there was no inclination, for you to go into that space. So it's really science. Like this science was what, by the way, like what, so how did you sort of came to your realization that science is really what you wanted? Like sometimes you have your student, you have so many things, but what was that trigger, I guess, that you said, told yourself, yeah, definitely science is the space I'm going, despite all these many sort of other, courses, or areas that potentially you could go to, because you're a very intelligent, young lady.
Well, I think science in itself, it's so broad and there are so many unknown, and it's very also difficult to grasp everything because it's so interconnected with the different disciplines. It's quite ironic that bio and chem were the only two subjects in high school that I feel like were my weaknesses, and that's currently all I'm taking this year and for the next couple of years. But I really enjoy that challenge of the unknown and being able to pursue that in research, where you are having to actively find solutions to unknown causes, mechanisms. That was really interesting to me. So I think that problem solving aspect within science is something interesting.
Awesome. So where do you see yourself, say after, so you're graduating, how long is your course? Is it 3-4 years or 5 years?
It's a 3-year course, but I'm still unsure where I want to go for in my postgraduate studies. So yeah, 3
So
years.
yeah, a lot. Yeah. So what, I know that you said you wanted to do this research, but where do you see yourself, say 10 years from now? Or maybe even longer than, like it's sort of a long-term thinking, but where do you see yourself after your graduation? And you're going to do your postgrad, but what in concrete, like, yeah.
So I'll be 29 29 from now. I think I would still be studying, but otherwise I hopefully would do research research revolving around skin diseases, because that's something that really interests me. Hopefully I'll have a house, and being able to live by myself somewhere is nice as well. And I think at the age of 29, I would obviously want financial freedom. I feel like that's also something that I'm really interested in, is investing in finances. So that's where I see myself.
Yeah. So as a student, what are tell me about your sort of, your some of the things that bother you, like, or stresses of a student, how is it like, now that you're sort of semi-independent, I suppose, like, because you're out of your parents' environment, you have your own apartment, living with your flatmates. What are some of the the things or issues or challenges that you face as a student?
I think being a student away from home is difficult, because obviously you're so used to living with your parents and living with your family, that you do miss them. But I'm very glad that I met some really amazing people, especially last year when I lived in halls that I just got along with. So I wasn't too upset in the beginning, and I called them every day. I think another challenge of being a student as well is you think that you have enough time, but I think it's just such a big change from high school to going into university that the workload is quite overwhelming to begin with. But I think just changing study habits and making sure that you do have a balance with your mental, physical, just overall health and well-being is important, and prioritizing that.
Nice. So how's your I know that you have both Filipino parents. How do you sort of still, I know, nagtatagalog ka pa, di ba? Marunong ka pa mag-Tagalog.
Konti
How
lang
do
po.
you, konti lang, konti lang. So how do you sort of maintain, I guess, that sort of culture, or whether the Filipino culture is actually something that you feel that is unique about you, and that is actually, something that you're, you know, strengthens you, I suppose, like something that you're proud of. Is that, is culture a big thing for you? Your or Filipino heritage something that you're proud of?
Most definitely. It's something that I'll always spread awareness about. My culture is so important to me, especially just the values that we have in terms of family values and etiquette and customs. It's always going to be embedded in me. And that's actually a really interesting question when you pose that, because I feel as though I sort of had like an identity crisis almost, because I did migrate to New Zealand. I was born in the Philippines and migrated here when I was 5 years old. And I think being surrounded by and just the high school, or not the high school, but the primary and intermediate schools that I went to, it's hard to just connect or feel as though that you belong with everyone. So being able to surround myself with people who embrace their cultures, it sort of gave me that motivation, like, hey, like being Filipino is unique and no one else can take that away from you. And that's why I'm still involved with a lot of Filipino groups. Like, I'm so glad that you created this group here, and always tried to spread it to my friends who are non-Filipino, so helping them learn my language, so trying out
Nice.
different Filipino food, understanding the cultural background. So I took Pacific Studies last year, and it was interesting to see that background in the Philippines, how they sort of not descended. I'm not too sure what the correct terminology is, but
Oh,
we're
it's that origin, like the origin, the journey, from
yeah,
the Philippines, Taiwan to the, to the Pacific, that journey, which is, so we have the same whakapapa, including Maori as well. I don't know where you've studied Maori, but it's really interesting. We have
yeah.
affinity, with the Maori culture as well,
It's
and
yeah,
Japanese in Taiwan.
it's definitely interesting to have all of our cultures be so similar, with Pacific Island communities, because it was so easy for me to talk about the similarities that we had in food as well. So
Mm.
yeah.
All right. Okay. So is there anything else that you want, to share? There, if like some questions maybe I've missed, in terms of like, what is it that you would be interested to share to a Filipino audience? So our group is, I suppose, like, it's a Filipina, super Pinays, I call them. Those who were able to sort of break through barriers, have succeeded. They are migrants, and for you as a student, still have your culture, Filipino culture with you, but as you mentioned earlier, there's that identity crisis. So is there anything else you want to share, like, as a young person, that maybe other young people would be interested to hear about, or ask your elderly, older people, older than you, would want to, think about, or challenge us about? Is there anything, you want to share?
So I think the reason why I'll be sharing what I'm about to say is because I feel as though I've been quite stereotyped in high school, just being a Filipino or just being Asian in general, that they'd expect me to be a lawyer, a doctor, blah, 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 blah. But I think we're worth more than that. Our experiences and everything doesn't just have to be bottled down to just a career path that is deemed so incredible, so glamorized. So pursuing something that you feel passionate about and that you actually want to make a difference in the communities is more important than just having a glamorous,
Your career,
yeah.
a
And
professional career. Yeah.
a professional career, but otherwise it's so amazing to have this platform, Super Pinay New Zealand. So I'm very grateful for having to be on here, Tita.
Oh, thank you.
I
Yeah,
was wondering, actually, can I ask you a question?
sure, sure.
What upcoming events do you have? And perhaps maybe for young people out there, any events that you have for them?
I haven't thought about that, but that's a very good question. When I initiated this group, it was more around sharing sort of stories of Filipino women living in Aotearoa, New Zealand, because if you have a look, and just really go around, talk to people. Oh my God, there's just a lot of amazing stories of Filipino women, Filipina, here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, but it's not in a platform where people can actually hear or listen, to it. So my sort of initial, when I was thinking about this, I said like, oh, International Women's Day. And what else can we do? So I'm more of kind of like, how can we raise and celebrate and be proud of those successes of, and when I say success, it's relative, as you were saying, no, it's not about your career, and not just about your career, it can be something else. It can even just be, I've studied, I don't have anyone here. I studied in the university and just really studied by myself. I paid for my education. That's all those struggles, but you are able to sort of succeed because of, your gut, it's just your resilience and perseverance and just having to navigate all those challenges. So that was my purpose of creating this channel, for that. But when I interviewed someone the other day, the project management, like Sel Medes Dihamco, and she was saying, oh, I can actually host, for example, Q&A around project management so that for those people who would be interested in that pathway, I can, there's questions and then I can answer them, or maybe an FAQ, frequently asked questions, and post it somewhere so that it can be accessed. And then last night I spoke with Marikar, who's a yoga guru, and she has a luxury wellness center in Marchison, and she said, oh, I can do like these breathing exercises, so I think while you're having this conversation with Filipina, and so ideas just really come. And so I think it would be at some point the idea of, as you were saying, once we have this groundswell, I guess, of knowledge and support amongst us, that we should be looking at how we support. The other thing mentioned earlier as well in my conversation with Sil is the idea of mentoring. So like, how can we maybe set up a mentoring program for our young women or students, so that whatever pathway they're thinking about, there's someone who's going to be guiding them. Because personally, I myself was mentored when I came here. When I started my career, I had a mentor, and then continuously now I'm also mentoring not just Filipinos but non-Filipinos as well. So I'm being a mentor to non-Filipinos. So I think there is that opportunity, I think, for us to share. And so first is, as I said, the first idea was to sort of just celebrate and be proud of the achievements and successes of Filipino women, and share that story in a platform that other women and other people can listen to. And then from it's always, like, it's in whatever you do, ideas and it's a springboard of other ideas, I think. And so just even that question from you said, like, oh, can we is there going to be some events or things like that? That is a very good question that I think need to be thought about. Is that something that we would want? What do you think? What do you think would be useful for a platform like this for a young person like you?
I think just for the most part, it's amazing to have these conversations and being able to celebrate other Filipinas. successes, because I'm not too sure if you heard of the term imposter syndrome, where you feel as though you don't feel good enough to do a certain thing, because being able to see other people's successes, it just motivates you to believe that you can do it as well, despite all the challenges and barriers that they face. Otherwise, I think a mentoring program, I've been mentored myself, and I think it's been such a tremendous help in my school journey as well as my career planning. Being able to have someone there being with me who's gone through the the pathway that you want to go into is actually has been so helpful. In terms of anything specific, I don't have anything in mind right now, but I assumed it was just going to be a lot of online seminars for now, or just like online Zooms.
Yeah, for now, yeah, of course, because we're in this world of pandemic. That the idea of doing this, is just also to reach out, a way of reaching out, because again, yesterday or last night when I had a chat with one of our interviewees, Maricar, I was actually feeling unwell the night before, and so she has sent me these breathing exercises that has helped her. So she actually created it, made it, and then had gifted it to a friend who was undergoing some stress in her life because of COVID and other things. And so she sent it to me, and that triggered, I guess, for me, the one of the things that I did way back. And so maybe that was 2017 or 2018. I enrolled in a holistic, mind, body, food activity. So like, all these meditations and exercises every day, and then like just really have awesome food, but the food that you eat are really just very, very good food, like good for your body. And then I prepare it like you eat like 5-6 times a day, but small portions, and you do it. It's really nice. And so it just triggered back that sort of what I did way back, that I think it's useful to share those sort of, even just sharing the stories. The other thing too, I've recently done for this Super Pinay YouTube channel is actually just sharing some of the knowledge that we share. So for example, I don't know whether you're aware, but I've started my mycology journey. So this is the culture of mushroom, so you grow mushroom from scratch. And I enrolled in an online course because I can't find anything that is suitable for here in New Zealand. I can see like small, but they don't tell you everything. And you have to pay, to be able to get that information. You have to enroll, you have to pay like $500 to be able to sort of get that information. And so I said, I've already enrolled, in this class, I'm doing it. So why can I not share this, to others? So others who would be interested in that sort of thing, can just listen to the. So anyways, I started, doing my my series of video, blogs around culture of mushroom, from what do you need, and what, all those of just really some of the terminology and how do you do it practically. So I've done that, and I will continue to do that, and I'm sure others, like for example, I've shared one of the chair yoga video that one of our guests, or the guest last night had been doing, and it's in Tagalog at saka meron din siyang English. So I've shared that because I think it's the sharing. It's just really, this is a channel, for people to share something, to their fellow, fellow women. And I particularly focus on the women because I think, we have other men is all right, but I think it's just really okay to sort of to help each other. And like you've said, gender, the gender issue still not there, the parity, it's still not there. Even, I work in the government, some, and if you look at the statistics, even pay of those in the public, pay in, in the different positions are still unequal. And
Definitely.
like board membership still not equal. So I think there is a way, for us, and especially as migrant women. So it's not, so that's why I think, for me, that is a focus that I wanted, this to be, to channel, our knowledge, experience, and just have a safe environment, for us to have a conversation. Kasi it's really conversation. It's not, that's why ang aking approach here is, let's just have a chat. It's not like interview na super, mahirap. It's informal. It's a safe environment for us to share our stories. So that's why I've done this. I
I
created
think,
this.
and it's really unique. Not only is it a platform for the Filipino community and specifically for women, but I think just holistically looking at all of the communities in Wellington, for example, a lot of it is to do with sports and all of that, which is awesome. I love going to them and also trying out the food, and also those cultural events where we can see artworks and different performances. I've never encountered a platform like this, and being able to share things openly, comfortably. It's so good to have that shared out with just everyone, to be able to have motivation and inspiration.
Nice. Thank you.
Do you have
So,
any plans of sort of connecting between women in the Philippines who are also looking towards wanting to come into New Zealand or anything around that sort?
well, the platform is actually open. So it's open it's accessible. I mean, women from everywhere, or Filipino women from everywhere, can have access to what we have here. So it's public, it's available for a public. And I guess I think what I always in the back of my mind is, I think we start small. We start with, and make sure that it's actually is something useful for our own area, environment, or what we have here, the realities of New Zealand. Sometimes when we connect up with the Filipina in the Philippines, it's sort of a different environment again. So we are migrants in a country, and even the country that we migrated to is also different. And so I think it's how what we're doing here, and what all the challenges that we faced and are still facing, as it could be generic, but I think they're specific to New Zealand. And because sometimes, like for us, you know that for sure, that we're here in New Zealand, we're pretty much open, like everything is open, like all the avenues, everything is there for you to just tap into. You don't, it's
Definitely.
easy. Yeah, it's easy. And then I think in other countries that may be different. And that's why I think what we're doing here, what New Zealand. Yeah.
Sorry, there we
So
go. Sorry, would you be able to repeat that, because the recording just cut, the internet had cut out, I think,
cut
in
out.
the middle of your conversation.
Okay, so I was just saying that I think for now we're just going to be focusing on us here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, because of the uniqueness of our experience in here. There are some maybe experience that are relevant to others around the globe or in the Philippines, but maybe not everything. And so I think for now, before we even go further, I think it's better to sort of focus on us for now, and share those stories. I'm sure it will be an inspiration to others, because, for example, the people, some of the people that I'm going to be interviewing, like how did they manage to be in that space where they're currently at? In the business, some, as I said, it's not business, and some even just being able to sort of study and work, while studying. alam mo, meron pa akong actually gusto ngang i-focus maybe at some point, to maybe discuss with some of the students like you is, alam mo ang mga estudyante sa Pilipinas, it's very difficult for them to actually work while studying, in college or
Definitely.
in high school. It's
Yeah.
impossible for students in the Philippines to actually work and able to study full time. But here
It's
in New
like,
Zealand, yeah,
yeah.
normal sa estudyante yung actually magtrabaho while studying in high school
I've
or
been
in
working since
university.
13 years old. Yeah, it was
Oh,
so weird because actually I've had a lot of conversations about this with other people as well as with Amba as well.
mm,
How the education system in the Philippines, I think they have it from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., which in itself is a full-time job.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, so kaya ganun, there are some unique things that we experience here in New Zealand that probably has also helped us thrive, as migrants, and not as hard as other countries. Because I remember I had a friend who had she worked in the House of Representatives before, because I worked in the Senate before, and she moved to Canada. She has a PhD and everything, but she wasn't able to actually manage to get to the job that she was really looking for. And so, samantalang dito sa atin, if you have experience, like the migrants that, study, that come here to work, alam mo yun, yung they can actually go and get the job that is appropriate for their qualifications. And I think that, again, that's all because of the migration policy. They only want, people who has deserved skills. And you have to get a job that's relevant to your skills so that kasi maganda yun, kasi at the end of the day, you become happier and more satisfying yung life mo kasi you're able to get the job that is relevant for you and your qualifications and experience. So yun yung kaya yun yung mga pwede natin i-share, in this sort of the context behind why are we, we women, what are we doing and how are we able to sort of face all those challenges. Yun.
yeah,
So
and I think also that's a really good point that you talked about with being able to take on things that you really enjoy, because outside of your professional career there's so many opportunities as well to either become a board of a certain community or group, start up your own passion projects, and even starting your own business, because business here in New Zealand is very, very easy. So there's definitely a whole wide of variety and platforms that you can take on in groups to just be involved with. So I think it's good in that sense that New Zealand provides a holistic overview of what life is meant to be like and not just solely on career.
Yeah, cool. All righty. Oh my God, thank you for this conversation, Xyryll. Alam mo, natutuwa talaga ako sa sa name mo. How did your mom, like, oh my God, it's just like XYRYLL. So that's like all consonants.
I thought so. I asked. For me, I thought it was just a keyboard smash. Like they smashed my name on a keyboard and they said, "Yep." But I'm very grateful for my name, because even though it's very difficult when people are trying to say it in the beginning, they always talk about how unique it is, and it's really unique. Yeah. And just the most frustrating thing is, I feel like this is a Filipino thing, because I know so many people who are the same. Having three names, three first names. So Xyryll, Ma, Rizzi.
Yeah.
So Ma, Xyryll, I think was derived from maths. Don't quote me on that, because I think it is from maths, because my dad was like a math geek back in the day. And Ma is short for Maria, and then Rizzi is Rizaldi Irene, and then Benito Gallego. So yeah, my name is very long, and yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Oh my God, like I really like this conversation. So thank you very much. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the conversation as well. And
I definitely did.
Yeah, have a good day.
Thank you so much, Tita, for having me. I honestly, it's so amazing that you have this platform to be able to share other people's stories and just starting this group in general. I can't wait to see what more you have to bring, and as well as other women have to bring. Can't wait to hear all their stories.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tita.